Hey y'all, Moses here. In today's video, we're taking a look at the top 5 mistakes that players make in PUBG. This is one of my favorite videos to make. I've made a few in the past, but as time has gone on and as I've evolved as a player, the different mistakes that I see have changed, and especially with the maturity of the current player base. I've recently, at least in the last month, have been playing a lot more PUBG since I've been home from casting the MPL. And I found myself making a ton of mistakes that I thought maybe my learnings might help you guys. And you know what else is really helpful? The PC37X from Mastrop. Yes, that is right. It is the PC37X. It's got a crystal clear microphone, terrific sound, an independent volume control, and a detachable cable. That's why you can't see one on this pair. It's a great pair of headphones with a great microphone. There's a link down in the description. Check them out on Mastrop. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, so let's jump right in. The first mistake I see very often, and something that I've been guilty of in the past, is ignoring the training mode. The training mode is designed and sometimes perceived as only a tool for the new player. This is not the case. Yes, you can jump into the training mode and try out all the different guns, try out the parachute, try out all the vehicles. What I like to use the training mode for is a warm-up tool. I grab a kit and a backpack, I fill it filled with ammo, and I pick out my first primary weapon, and I stand in the training mode and I just fire away at moving targets. I switch targets rapidly. I'm practicing my spray control. I'm getting warmed up for the games to come. Now, you might be thinking, who needs to warm up for games, especially in a game where maybe you're playing every day, maybe you fancy yourself as a top-level player. But every single player in every other sport, esports included, has a warm-up routine. If it's not CSGO with deathmatch mode, Overwatch has a training mode and a deathmatch mode as well. Warm-ups are a huge part of esports and regular sports as well. So I'll give you my quick warm-up routine. I go into the training mode. I mute the sound immediately, mute the in-game sound because it's not going to matter, and it's going to be also overwhelming with all the gunshots going on. Put on my favorite music and just sit there and just work through the different weapons a couple at a time. I don't really spend a ton of time in there. I'll usually warm up with the AK or the barrel, something that's a little bit harder to control. One of my favorite things to do is actually just stand in the center of the training area and flick to different targets with 5-round bursts over and over again, aiming for the head, prioritizing the upper body, hitting moving targets, peeking around corners, just trying to simulate as best I can a real-world engagement that you might find in a regular solo game. So get out there into the training mode and spend some time getting warmed up. And that frustration that you might have the first couple of games where you're getting destroyed might go down a little bit. And sometimes you have to go in there and reset as well. If you're having a bad set of games, jump back into the training mode, spend another 5 minutes, just get used to your spray again, and then jump back into solos or whatever you're playing. So that's something that I think a lot of players need to work on, is just getting warmed up, getting yourself just, practicing your skills. It's a big part of improving in this game. The second thing I want to cover is more of a meta mistake, and that is players focusing on weapon stats and confusing it with weapon effectiveness. Now, this has become a bit of an issue as we've learned more about the game. We talk a lot about time to kill, hits to kill, different weapon stats, weapon damage. But realistically, I have a couple of rules when it comes to choosing my weapon and choosing which weapons are effective. The first one is fire rate. Fire rate and time to kill are very closely tied. Fire rate and damage go together to create a time to kill metric. Now, Wacky Jackie and myself have both covered time to kill, but what that doesn't include is player error, recoil control, all that stuff. So if you're looking for a high-level weapon like the 416, which has the fastest AR fire rate, or the Vector, which has the fastest SMG fire rate, those are good choices. Now, a lot of people like to talk about the DP28 or the Mutant. Those things suffer from low fire rate. And the Mutant is a garbage weapon regardless. I think you guys know that about me. I really dislike that gun for the bullet speed as well as the fire rate. Bullet speed is the second aspect of that as well. You want to typically prioritize a higher bullet speed, like the M16, if you want the fastest bullet speed of any AR. But the M16 bullet speed alone doesn't make it a good gun. So find a high fire rate weapon. Don't focus so much on things like time to kill. Hits to kill are the same for all 5.6 ARs regardless. But, just make the right choices when it comes to choosing your weapon. don't just pick one that you think is the absolute best because of the time to kill stat. Don't get clouded in those little things, and just find a gun that you're comfortable with using and that you are successful with. Those two things will make your experience better and will make you a better player. He's getting VSS from the edge. All right, so the third mistake that I see a lot of the time, especially in my own gameplay, is unforced errors. Now, this is a bit of an omni topic, but unforced errors are things like starting a bad fight. Let's say you see an enemy that's running in front of you. You're running out in the open as well. You think he's going to be an easy target, but you fail to recognize that he has an easy access to cover. Say he can run to a rock or a tree, and you start that fight, and he turns on you from cover because you can't finish the fight quickly, and you get murdered in the open. That is an unforced error, at least one example. Another example of an unforced error is just pure impatience. This is something that can happen at any stage of the game. Perhaps you have a player that's camping or has good position on you, but you are trying to either get the kill or get around them, get to the zone, and you basically just rush into decision making. This happens to me a lot in the end game, where I feel like I know exactly how things are going to go. So I might even have the advantage. This happened just yesterday. I'll show you a quick example of how in a late game situation, I had a bunch of kills. I had a guy camping inside the end zone in Miramar in a very unique spot on the southern island. And I just wanted to nade him so bad that I came out across his where he could have been, and he shot me in the back. And that's just one of those situations where I could have just waited. I was impatient. I tried to force a play, try and get the kill because the guy was playing super passively, and it cost me a very good game. So that is a good example of why you just need to back it down a little bit, find the advantage, and play it to your maximum capability. Don't rush into things. Don't worry about securing a quick kill. Don't rush in PUBG because it will always find a way to punish you. So when it comes to these late game situations, even though it's super tense, just go to what you know, which is positioning first. Try and get the zone, get the advantage, and hold on to it as long as you can, and other players will be forced to react to you. Don't react to other players if you don't have to, even though sometimes it can be enticing. But you know what? You live and you learn, and sometimes you're going to make that mistake. The fourth mistake is, again, perpetual looting and prioritizing loot over the danger of enemy players. This is a mistake I see all the time. And this mostly comes from player suggestion, VOD review, and just generally watching other players, or at least lower skilled players or new players playing the game, where they are so concerned with getting that one extra piece of loot that they will forego safety, the regard for their own lives. Nothing will stop them from getting that next piece of loot, even if it's something like a flash hider for a sniper rifle, something that's going to bring a marginal benefit. So basically, I suppose the one thing you want to avoid doing is that, say you're hot dropping military base and you see the first thing in front of you is a level 2 vest or a level 2 backpack, a level 2 helmet, an extended mag. Meanwhile, you have 3 other people around you who are looting up the guns. You know, that is a good way to have your round just end. If you are prioritizing every piece of loot you might need over the things you need immediately, you are not going to have success in the early game. So my suggestion to you is always get the gun, and then even if there's more loot around, check for enemies first. Don't just be looking at the floor, hitting F or tabbing into loot. Make sure that you dispatch every enemy around you before you start exploring for loot, because there's nothing going to prevent you from getting that loot except for other enemy players. So don't worry about picking up that extra piece of gear. Don't run out to a loot box in the middle of an open field. Even if you've just got a nice fresh kill, you waited a little while. Just be more mindful in the late game of going to enemy loot boxes unless you absolutely need something like a helmet or a vest. Otherwise, just think, do I need anything right now? Are my meds good? What's my ammo like? What kind of weapons am I using? If you have a really bad weapon setup that you need to change, that I can understand. Or if you eliminated an enemy with crate weapons that you want to pick up the or something else you might need, that I can understand. But don't prioritize loot over everything else at all times. Consider all the different options. If you're just looking for attack stock and you have to run out to an open field to get it, don't do it. It's not worth your time and risking what might otherwise be a potential victory because you need some marginal piece of gear. Do not prioritize looting over murder ever. Get your kills first and get the loot second. And the fifth mistake I see players make the most is tunnel vision in gunfights. And again, I'm guilty of this from time to time, actually a lot of the time, where you'll spot an enemy on the move, or you get into an engagement, they've peeked one spot, but you haven't seen them in a couple of seconds. Maybe it's been 10 seconds. You have to assume that player has either meted, has moved, or is repositioning to attack you in a different way. Always have your head on a swivel, be looking around to see if anyone's approaching you from the rear, to see if the enemy's moved. You should be moving yourself. Prioritize a different position, and using vehicles in this case is going to be that flexibility. The two-seater motorcycle is probably the most flexible option. Obviously, it has some dangers associated with it, with flipping over or just being an exposed person on a motorcycle can be difficult, but you can quickly maneuver with the motorcycle. You can do the same thing with any vehicle. I would recommend the UAZ because it presents the best cover options if you do have to drive into an open field or you have to stop for any reason. The UAZ is probably my favorite, or my second favorite, over the two-seater motorcycle for staying flexible in movement in the mid game and avoiding those flanks as they come. And even in the late game situations, if you're in the top 5, if you see an enemy, be looking for other enemies. There is no greater third-party potential than in the late game, where players will look to capitalize on a distracted or attacking enemy and take you out of the game relatively quickly. So prioritize an indoor position where possible, but always, if you're outside or moving around trying to get those last couple of kills, make sure you are looking around constantly. Do not sit still in the end game. That is a easy way to get headshot and taken out of the game very, very quickly. So if you have any other questions about this or suggestions for yourself, leave a comment down below. I'm really interested to know if you guys have any of the mistakes you would like covered maybe in the next version of this video. Leave a like if the video was helpful to you, and don't forget to check me out on Twitter at twitter.com/wtfmoses, and of course on Twitch at twitch.tv/wtfmoses, where you can watch me live and making all the mistakes I just mentioned and remind me about the video I'm making right now. I think that's a fan favorite, is telling me and pointing out all the mistakes I make when I talk about them to you guys. But you know what? I'm human, so are you. We all make mistakes, and that's fine. Embrace the suck, and until next time, I'll see you out there.